to the Bread Slice. My name is Alex, and I am your host today. And today is a special day because we have our friend here, our guest, Paul Mackey. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
It's he's a friend of ours, and we go to the same church.
Yep.
Right. We see most of the time.
Just about every Sunday.
We have done catering as a charity for the church to raise some money, and that's a lot of fun. So, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. So, Mackey, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell the listeners, basically, your passion is what you do and who you are.
Sure. Like I said, like you said, I suppose, my name's Paul. I'm 38, recently married, just got remarried.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I am the father to an 8-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old stepson. Two wonderfully polar opposite, but amazing kids.
Mm-hmm.
With a third on the way now, due in a couple months.
Congratulations again.
Thank you. That's that's been weighing on us, trying to figure out what that's going to make sense to us. But I do sales by trade. I've been a salesman for 10 years now. I spent almost 10 years working in kitchens, and one day I realized I don't want to work 2 to 10 anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of stumbled backwards into doing sales, and it's paid off pretty well for me. Pretty happy with that kind of thing. And aside from that, I'm father primarily, I'm a husband, and play a lot of soccer. And that's me, I suppose.
And you build cars.
Yes, we're we've got a little race car at home that's overdue for some love. Allie, my wife, she is very much as she would say, she's a Dave Ramsey follower, Dave Ramsey fanatic at a certain point. So we're trying to chew through some debt before we hit the next stage of the car build, which is going to be this winter. But with the baby coming along, we said we'd push it off to next winter. So that's on the chopping block. So we can still drive around and enjoy it. It's just got a few too many oil leaks to take it back to the track in its condition.
Yeah.
But
I gotta say, it's just super impressive, like the things that you do. Like I remember coming to help you that one time, and just like the skill and the knowledge that you have just to build that kind of thing is just impressive.
Oh, and I love that
amazing.
you came on the one day where I was as far in over my head as I possibly could be, and I learned it very quickly. But no, I've always been a car guy, just never super close proximity to it. I worked at a towing company for about 4 years, which gave me access to the garage there, and I knew enough to get my hands dirty, and I learned a lot more from the guys there, which was a blessing in among itself. There's still kind of casual friends that I can connect with once in a while, but I've always tried to have fun vehicles. But getting into my 30s, I've learned having the one vehicle you have be a fun vehicle isn't a smart way to live. So now we have kind of a third vehicle in the house that functions with that, and it's nice because it's been 2 years ago now we had it completely torn down to the chassis. Obviously not drivable, and you can't do that to a car you're trying to get to work with Monday through Friday. So being able to really kind of tear into it and take our time, but it's my wife's car. She had it before we got together. It was neglected, it was unloved, and one spring day I said, I'm digging this thing out of the storage room it was in, and I'm going to clean it up and take it for a drive. And I got the summer wheels on it. She had some very pretty wheels she was very happy with. So I got the summer wheels on it, got it all cleaned up, got the top down. She came home from work. She was working in a bakery at this point. So she came home around noon or 1. It was a beautiful spring day, like the first really nice day we had, because it's a convertible. For anyone who knows, it's a convertible BMW E30. If you know, you know. That's a just fantastic little car. But so I got up, and I spent 5 hours getting that thing. I went and got a new battery for it because the battery was just toast. Cleaned up really nicely, got the wheels on it. We drove it about, the plan was to go down and get some tacos, and we made it a grand total of a mile before one of the wheels fell off because in my rush, I didn't tighten down one wheel.
Too excited to get it out there.
I was, and I knew she was on her way home. So I'm like, I gotta get this done, and just busting my butt to try and get it knocked out. And I think that was a weird blessing in disguise moment, because that kind of catapulted us into a point of like, well, we're not. What are we gonna do here? We can scrap it because I mean it was we were looking at a not any I think unreasonable, but a hefty repair bill to get it
Yeah.
sorted. And it was like, well, now we're in it. Now there's no turning back. We spent the money. It spent the summer at a body shop getting sorted, and now it's like I kind of looked at it like this is the investment that makes it a forever car. So our kids love it. It's got 4 seats and top goes down, and even with all 2 years ago tearing it all the way down, it's got a roll cage in. It's got a half cage.
Yeah.
Racing seats, harnesses, the whole nine. But we made sure to keep a back seat in there. So a little harder for the kids to get in with the cage,
Yep.
but it's not so intrusive, and they can still buckle up, and we can still go for Sunday
Yeah.
ice cream, which is
Exactly. Yeah. I remember you saying that like I want to build this to be fun and to take the kids and not just being like a super racy car, but something that you can take the family with and share some good times.
absolutely
Yeah.
yeah. We love just getting Sundays. Sundays in summer is just so good. We'll get up, go to church in it. I mean, there's always somebody that's got something to say about it, which kind of brightens your day. And
Yes.
it's always kind of a fight between me and Allie who gets to drive it, because she's like, if you drive it, everyone looks at you and gives you the thumbs up. When I drive it, nobody gives me props for having this car. I'm like, you can drive it all you want. I love just working on it. I mean, I'll enjoy my time behind the wheel, but so it's been kind of a cornerstone in a really really fun way for us. So, but
Well, it sounds like there's all these blessings in our life, and it's easy to forget them when we're moving so fast through our day, and when we like get stressed out. And I like just thinking of all these things and just being reminded of the things that God does for us. And I would like to ask you, how do you feel? How do you see God working in your life right now, as opposed to, let's say, before, if you were like in a crossroads on some kind of tribulation, or compared to before? Because personally in my life, I see tremendous change from, let's say, 5 years ago, where I actually did not know His word, and how, knowing love, I know how to love not just the people around me, but appreciate all the blessings and love the life that actually God has provided for me. I don't know if I make myself clear.
no, you make
Yeah.
sense. Honestly, when you invited me on this, what was it, 2 weeks ago, almost to the day. And you kind of said, well, I've got this podcast, and you come on and we'll talk, and talk about your walk with Jesus. And it kind of got me thinking. I've never really tried to communicate how it's not just a growth over a year. We've been active churchgoers now for 4+ years now. Shortly after me and Allie got together. My previous marriage, she was not a person of faith at all. She was actively not a person of faith. And in Allie's previous, it wasn't quite to that extent, but definitely he wasn't. He'll go if he's been forced to, but it's not a choice.
Yeah. I mean, I remember you guys invited me to the church that we go to. That's how I found the core.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was, and it's even when we invited you, we're still trying to figure stuff out. But I've been playing soccer with Pastor Mike for somewhere between 8 and 11 years. I would have to. No, it couldn't be that long. Yeah, around 8 years, because I first met him. At that point we were playing on Wednesday nights, and I'd bring Phoenix with me in a car seat, and she'd sit on the bench in the car seat. I'm playing with a group of guys that are my age or slightly older, so almost every single one of them is a father.
Yeah.
So before I sound like a negligent parent, she'd sit there and she'd
Yeah.
hang out, and the guys would take turns, whoever's subbed out, just kind of holding her. And
Yeah.
and at that point, Mike was playing on another team, and we're high-fiving at the end, and he was, in his way, competitively frustrated with me successfully shutting him down. Mike's a striker. He's trying to get all the goals. I'm a goalkeeper, so my job is to ruin his day. And I successfully ruined his day that day.
Yeah.
So in the handshake line afterwards, I had Phoenix in the car seat in my hand, and I don't remember exactly what he said. You'll have to ask him. But he definitely said some, in his way, less than appropriate words. And that was like, he says whatever he says to me, and then he looks down and sees Phoenix there. He's like, oh boy. And he's, he was like, it wasn't one of my proudest moments. And I'm like, well, I'm not here to judge you. That's not my place. But, ever since then, we kind of became friends. And when Allie started coming to my soccer games, I think one of Mike's first things is he'd been kind of casually trying to get me to come for a little while, and then meets Allie, and I think he was like, "That's my way to get him to come. That's my way to get him to see
Yep.
the light." And I think they had about a 5-minute conversation after one game, and we were at church that Sunday,
Oh wow.
and there was really no looking back. I think both me and Allie kind of had that. Now we realize that was kind of a hole in our lives, and in a way where, to your original question that I've completely danced around. I think it's having trust in God to, when in those moments where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know, especially in the out of control moments. Just taking a breath and thinking, whatever's coming, it's with purpose, and it may challenge me in ways I wasn't prepared for. It may feel like so much more of a blessing than what it could be. But it's in those flip of a coin moments. That's the one side of kind of how I feel like growth has come to us. Is I'm not a stressed out person for the most part. If you catch me with any level of anxiety, you've caught me in a very awkward moment, and I have no ability to handle it. But they're few and far between. So I've never been stressed. Had stress as a kind of a thing to deal with, but now in those moments, and Allie's a little more tuned up to that kind of stuff than I am. So in those moments, reminding her that he's got us, that in everything he's done for us, in every way he's blessed us, in every way he's challenged us, it's with purpose, and we can get through it. We can get through anything together and with faith in him. And then on the other side of it is the bigger picture, is the longer game, looking, just trying to be a better person than the person I was yesterday, and knowing that that's not always an easy task. That if you look at what you did yesterday that you weren't proud of, and you try to do it better today, inevitably there'll be something else that you do today that you won't be proud of tomorrow. Because
Exactly.
because growth isn't a linear thing. Your life is all these varying moments of success and failure. I could be an absolute jerk driving down the road and be nasty to every single other person on the road, and I could think, I'm going to do better at that tomorrow. And when I do better at that, then I'm going to eat a pizza and a half and be a gluttonous monster and think, wow, I think there might have been a thing that Moses said about gluttony, about that, being smarter than that. And so there's always, those are very simple examples, but I'm just trying to be a better person than the person I was the day before, because I'm never going to be Jesus. I'm never going to be perfect. I'm never going to be sinless. I'll sin almost every moment of every day. But just trying to be better than that guy was yesterday, better than that guy was last year.
Do you think that also? I feel that you say right there is what a lot of motivational speakers based their entire seminars on. Like, be better. You can do better. You can achieve this if only you set your mind to do these things. And how it shows how quickly that can just collapse in itself when we try to rely on our own selves, and how much we need Jesus for that. What the forgiveness that he offers, the renewed, it says in the Bible, like, my glory is renewed every single morning. So with that, trying to be better in his name, that's when we actually become better, because we live it up to him and not to our own power. I feel like if we live it to our own power, we're gonna be disappointed in ourselves day after day after day, because like you said, I'm gonna be nasty to everybody on the road, and then I do better, but then I let myself down by eating that pizza. I think that's a vicious cycle, and if we don't know the grace of Jesus, that is a really good way to fall into despair, or because we keep letting ourselves down. And quite honestly, when we do that, and then we look at other people, and when we let ourselves down, we don't have any ability to not let other people down. So I feel like when we rely on that, it's when we set ourselves up for failure. So that's why we need Jesus in our life, I think. And like you said, like Ali, who tends to worry about more, and then you're a person who doesn't worry that much. I feel like that's the balance right there that you guys are finding. Like that's the reason why God put you guys together, because you're like, don't worry. And then you look at you're a person that is more technically focused, more what should I say, more less emotional about the things, I would say, because I feel like anxiety comes from a place of a lot of emotion and reacting
Hmm.
right away, and I feel like you're more like methodical.
Yeah,
Is that fair to say?
I think it's a pretty fair
Yeah.
assessment. Me and her, we balance each other out in so many different ways, and um, when we're with a baby coming along, we're starting to do a little bit of counseling and stuff just to try and shore up our communication in ways to, it's easy to say, oh, you balance each other out. You can do this. I'll do this. It'll be
Mm-hmm.
great. But to feel that it's balanced, to feel that there's a shared respect and a shared trust in that way is
Mm-hmm.
not as easy as you put it on. And then
Mm-hmm.
to compound it with, with a newborn coming into the world and something that's, I mean,
Yeah.
that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You got to be tuned. You got to be into that. You got to be ready to go. And so we're trying to figure out how to balance that
Mm-hmm.
so in a way that that we're better for each other, that we're stronger together. And we know
Mm-hmm.
we're stronger together, but being able to, I guess, actualize that. I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't think it's ever that easy, like relationships are not easy, and relationships, especially, reflecting on our relationship with God, because God is a relational God,
hmm
and relationship require work, constant communication, constant talking. So to me, actually, I thought about the sermon that Pastor Mike was talking about, being the ligaments and leaning into your own strengths,
hmm
and how he said that he's like a book person and he absorbs information and then he can just recall it and then use that up. I started thinking, what is something that I can do better to better my relationship with God? Because I've been wanting to read the Bible more and more and more, but as a person, I think I had undiagnosed ADHD, because I read and it's just difficult for me to actually concentrate on what I'm reading. And I thought, you know what? I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to probably 8 hours of podcasts a day. Let's listen to the audio Bible.
Sure.
And in the past 2 weeks, I've gone through 4 books of the Bible. Something that I probably would have done by reading would have taken me like a month or two. And that is leaning into our own strengths. It's how I forgot what I was going with this. I kind of lost my train of thought there.
No, you're good.
But
Well, and do you feel like with listening rather than reading, do you feel like that's helping you with retention?
100%.
Okay, yeah,
A
I'm on
hundred
the same.
percent.
I'm on 100% on the
Yep.
same page with you. Like, so our bedtime routine at home involves Allie spending a little time with her son, and usually I'll go to bed and she'll come in about 15 minutes later. And for a while, that 15 minutes was spent with me on Instagram or Pinterest or Facebook or you name it, just scrolling, looking at cars, looking at whatever else I can find, and just probably just recycling the exact same information I'd seen the day before in a slightly different order, but that's how all that stuff works. And she comes to bed one night, and we had a bit of a rough day, and she's like, and this is what you're gonna do with your time. After the whole day we had, this is what you're gonna do with your time. It's like, she's like, you need to find something to read. You need to find. She's like, I'm bettering myself, and she is. She's she doesn't take. She takes, if she's like, I need to be better, she'll actively do something about it that moment. And where me, I don't always recognize this stuff, and I don't always have the follow through on things like that. So it's like, all right, I'm gonna go. Well, at first it was, I'll go to Barnes and Noble tomorrow and I'll look at some books. And then Dave Ramsey came into the conversation. He's like, no, you're not. You can go to the library and you're gonna rent some books. So I was like, you're right, honey. That's what I'm gonna do. So I went to the library and rented 5 books. Just grabbed a whole stack. Now, fun story. I found the nonfiction. Found it was a lot of nonfiction. I think I was in like a Christian nonfiction area kind of thing. I can't promise because I don't know the library organization. Seems to be what I stumbled across here. And I thought, well, if I'm just going to start reading, I'm going to start in the beginning of the alphabet, see what titles seem to work, and I'm going to grab those 5 books, and I'm going to bring those 5 books home. So I get home and open up the first book I grabbed was called I believe it was called Better Together. Now, no disrespect to the author. On the off chance she ever listens to this, the foreword sounded amazing. This was she had I think a friend, a mentor. Though I think the foreword was written by somebody a little older than her, who had nothing but praise written about this woman. As I'm reading through the foreword, it just some of the talking points in there, I'm like, I think I might have missed the boat here. Well, and thinking that I'm buying a book called Better Together about how we're better together as a couple, it's better together and how men and women can stop like sex trafficking in Africa. And I might be summarizing it improperly because I definitely didn't read the book.
Wow. Yeah.
So I put that one down and I grabbed the second one, and that's been a bit of a good read so far. But to where I was originally starting with this, as I'm reading this, and I'm reading better than I feel like I did. Like 10 years ago, I just couldn't pick up a book. I felt like I read slow. I just couldn't get through anything. Now I'm making decent progress through this. But going back, I can't tell you specifics about what I'd read. I mean, I can tell you the vague architecture, and that's great. But I should start. I need to get into audiobooks. I need to be better about that because it's working.
Do you ever feel like when you're reading that you read a sentence and that sentence reminds you of something else, and then that reminds you of something else, and that reminds you of something else? That's the way it works with me. I read a sentence and then that reminds me of something. Then next thing I know, I read the whole page and I'm like, what did I just read?
Oh yeah, so your mind was somewhere, but your eyes were reading. Like you, unlike you, was successfully diagnosed with ADD as a child. I was medicated for it, the whole 9 yards. It was great because I never gained any weight. Now I'm working on that situation. But now I can read a full chapter, but my mind was somewhere else. I multitask like no one's business, and it's a blessing for me in my job because I'm, no knock on the people I work with, but I feel like some of those guys I'm twice as efficient just because I can talk, but my hands are doing something else. While my eyes are over here doing something else, I can be doing 3 things at once. But that's an easy way to make mistakes, and that's especially when you're trying to read something where it's slow down, digest it, enjoy it, revel in it a little bit. Can't do it. I sat and read a book of the Bible the other day. Pastor Mike had sent me an email, and it was just, again, we had a bit of an issue. Issue sounds awful. We had a rough day in our marriage, and I went to Mike and I said, hey, I'm looking for some resources, just because we need to be better, and we need to, especially with a baby coming, because baby's like, it's going to put everything under a magnifying glass. Our bad days are going to be magnified. Sure, our good days will be magnified too, but it doesn't make the bad days easier. And one of the things he replied with was like, "Here, this is a Bible passage. Just read this." So I read the passage, and then I read the whole book. I don't remember
what book was it.
Don't know. I don't. I just it was, it was, especially with reading the Bible. It's I love deep dives into particular books. And Mike does Pastor Mike does an amazing job, and Pastor Mike knows well of breaking down the words that you're reading, because you go through the Bible, there's not a lot of times, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, so if anyone comes on, sends you an email and says that guy was an idiot,
100%. Like I always tell it forward, like don't take what we say as fact, always go and read your Bible.
I didn't go to seminary.
We're just having a conversation here.
But I feel like you read through the Bible, there's not a whole lot of times they talk about people's maybe emotional perspective, or there's just there's a lot of times Boaz and Ruth went and did this, and then you sit and talk to Mike. You're like, can you imagine what Ruth's mental state was when she did this, or what Boaz was going through, and this and this? And I'm like, no, I can't, because I just so when we're able to sit down with people who have such a, not only just a deeper understanding of what the individual words mean, because there's times you hear different group names or different sects of sects of people in the Bible, and you're like, you glance over it like it's nothing, and somebody like pastor, somebody went to seminary, somebody who knows way more than I do is like, do you understand what that group is? And I know that came up in church the other week. That was those
things that are very repeated in the Bible, like with Exodus, that what I've been reading, that they repeat so much how the altar was to be built. And I wonder, like, what is the reason that it's been repeated so much? So you like when you're listening, when you read, especially when you're reading, you're like, I don't understand this. Like, what's the point? And then it's listening to the entire Genesis and Exodus, like almost back to back. Like I listened to all this too in like 2.5 days,
Hmm.
and seeing all this, you know, like you said, sects of people
Hmm.
and families and family trees and descendants. Your mind kind of just wonders. Like
Hmm.
I just can't really follow it. But then, like you said, you don't remember where you read it, but I kind of recall what kind of the point is. And to me, I don't know if I'm wrong because this is just me reading the first two books of the Bible, listening to the first two books of the Bible. God given all this rules and regulations to the people who, even though God was there the entire time as a pillar of fire when they were taking them out of Egypt, people were still like, "Is God really gonna do this for us? Is God really gonna come through?"
Hmm.
Back in Egypt we were slaves, so we had something to eat. Right here we don't have anything to eat. Still not trusting, and I feel like all those rules and regulations were given to them just to let them know how hard it is in our broken nature to be pleasing to God.
Oh yeah.
And foreshadowing, always foreshadowing Christ in the coming and the redeeming. And that's why I feel like the Pharisees were going nuts when Jesus said all these things, and they couldn't understand Jesus because they were too into their own laws and into their own worlds and into their own interpretations, just as we can just, you know, take something out of context.
Oh yeah. I mean, simply put, you go back and look at all those Old Testament laws and all that from the Pharisees, and simply put, it's a whole bunch of ways to say be the best version of yourself. Well, unfortunately, the best version of yourself is still never good enough, and
Mm-hmm.
that's you can want to be better. Wanting to be better is how every one of us should be. But at the end of the day, we're not there. We will never be there. So we were given Jesus and he was given to us and said, "Hey, you'll never be good enough to have that connection. So I'll bridge that for you. I got this. You continue to try and be the best version of yourself, but I got this."
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you got to lean on. You have to know that that's the truth. And for some people it's hard to accept that. Some people say, "Well, I'm good enough. I'll be a great person." Okay, not
Mm-hmm.
good enough. No matter
Yeah.
how you split it, it's not good enough. And trying to remind our kids of that is always fun because they're all over the place with understanding of all this because
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot to take in. And
Yeah. 100%.
and we're both growing and learning Christians as we are. So trying to teach that to our kids, you're like, well,
Where do I begin?
let's crack open the kids' Bible and hope that
Yeah.
does a better job than I do.
Mm-hmm.
What else are you gonna do? I guess.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, yeah, and I'm not a parent, so I don't know what that is. So I just can relate in that sense of how I was to my parents,
Mm-hmm.
and I was being the firstborn. I feel like it was just the trial. Like I remember I've mentioned this many times that when you're a kid, you kind of think that your parents have everything figured out.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like the adults know everything, and becoming an adult and then looking back, then and having the grace of Christ in your life, and allowing you to see uh, people with love. Now I see my parents as, any shortcomings that they had with me is because they didn't know better. They were doing their best.
Oh yeah.
Because I look at the way they treated my younger brother, and I always tell them, "You were the favorite." Because they already had the practice, and it seemed to me as the time that they were giving the best to him.
Yeah.
And they were always more stern with me, more they were more lenient with my brother, even though he's probably he's listening, he's been kind of a troublemaker. We talked about this all the time. So I feel like they were a little more I don't want to say more loving, but a little, he had more of a leeway. I don't know,
They figured out patience with him.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's at first, that's kind of like in my younger, like in the teenager early 20s, I kind of resented my mom, especially for that,
Sure.
for being like so overbearing. But then I understand now that I was the firstborn. She was probably like, I got to do my best with this one kid, and for forgiving them for their failures, as in whatever area, because we're not perfect and they were just people, and they're my parents and they love me. So I feel like without Christ I would not be able to see that. And I see that in a lot of people that maybe don't have like the best relationship with their parents, and depends, because that's different with every single person, how
Mm-hmm.
that relationship is. Some people are abusive, and that's terrible. That is just so sad and disheartening to me when they have an abusive parent. That's just terrible. But you know, forgiveness is for ourselves. It's, you know, you can forgive a person, and even if they're not repentant, it's forgiveness is to let go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And you know, to your point about parenting, I mean, inevitably, maybe you know, hopefully, I don't know what what your plans are, but hopefully someday you get to enjoy the love and frustration and pain and agony and awesomeness that is being a
Yeah.
parent. But you know, I think there's you know a saying I heard once. It was you're going to ruin your kids. You will,
Mm.
whether you give them too much, whether you give them too little,
Mm.
whether you know you'll look at the sins of your parents and say, I don't want to do that, and inevitably in trying to not do that, you'll do something else that's just as
Mm.
bad.
Yeah.
So you know, it's the give and take, is just trying to know that you're not good, know that you're not, you're doing the best you can, but it's never going to be good enough. And
Mm.
that's, you know, that's, it kind of goes hand in hand with being in the eyes of Christ and being in the eyes of your children. No matter
Yeah.
what you do, you're gonna do something wrong, and you're gonna kick yourself for it. You yell at your kids when you shouldn't have. You'll have to apologize to them, and you know, just being humble enough to know, um, you know, no matter who is looking at you, you're not as good as you should be, and you never will, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not. I mean, it's not an excuse, but it's okay.
Yeah. It's a learning curve.
Oh
You
yeah,
know? That's-
you're always learning. You know, you'll learn
exactly.
until the day you die.
Yeah. It's a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I always say that my dad actually did say that to me, that as you grow older, like you understand that you don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
The more you know that you don't know anything.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's one thing that also with our relationship with God, it's a lifetime. We never know. Like the word of God is so immense. Like we some guy had a, I don't know exactly what it was, but I saw this video on YouTube, and he had a mathematical formula. I don't know where he got it from, but he is like, this is just an insight. This is just like a whisper, a tiny little sliver that we can see into the mind of God with this equation. If I find the video, I'll send it to you because
Yeah, do it.
it's fascinating. And he did this equation, and then the equation of the decimal, it would just went. It's not pi, but it went infinity. And then he put it into a computer to make a model, and then it started making like a little, like a spiral, and then they zoom in into the spiral, and then it had more spirals, and then you zoom into the spiral, and then more spirals and more spirals and more spirals. The further you go in, the more there is, the more there is, the more there is. And it's like, this is just just a tiny snippet of what the mind of God is, because the mind of God is an infinite. It's infinite mind. This is something that we cannot grasp. And with that equation, he kind of illustrated how big that is.
Mm-hmm.
And the knowledge, and it says in Revelation that everything's going to be revealed to us at the end. And it said God will protect us with his presence. And to me, that was just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But the first time I read that, I remember it, and just like that, really touching my heart, and knowing, like, even though we have it really good in here by knowing him, and we still go through trials and tribulations, and how hard things might be, but as long as we lean on him, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, think of the apostles. Like, they leaned on him until the very last second when they got brutally killed. And, you know, all of the apostles didn't die a peaceful death.
No.
And to me, that it's a fact that kind of solidifies a lot of Christianity, not just on that fact for me, but people say, okay, well, if this was a lie, like all this, I read, some guy was telling me that he was reading a book about having the apostles, and everything was based on a mushroom, like their whole following was based on a mushroom that they took, and then they had a maternity cult. I know it's not. I try to follow up, and I try to ask questions, because like, this is not making any freaking sense to me. So it's like, oh yeah, the mushroom was God to them, and then it was like, okay, just listening, and I'm trying to ask logical questions about this, but it didn't make any sense. And to me, it's like, okay, well, if these guys were all in a lie, you think they're gonna be willing to be killed like that for a lie that they know it's a lie? Because they got killed for saying, oh, Christ was resurrected. We saw him. He came back from the dead. You think, like, for a lie, you think you're going to be willing to be put to death in the most horrible way for a lie that you know it is a lie that you're making up. You
So,
know?
so just to make sure I'm following this,
Yeah.
this person believed that the existence of Christ
Mhm.
was nothing more than a bunch of guys taking hallucinogenic mushrooms.
Yep.
Don't get it. And
Yep.
I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the subject. I have
Mm-hmm.
no experience in the subject, but I shouldn't say that. I have the smallest amount of experience in that I was once in Amsterdam
Mm.
um, when I was 23, and there's five people, and two guys decided they wanted to find some mushrooms,
Mm.
and one guy had a very peaceful day. The other person apparently had a horrible day, horrible experience, like just imagine just like seeing nightmares walking
Yeah.
at you, kind
Yeah.
of, just horrible.
Oof.
So, and I wanted nothing to do with it. I was at 23. I'm like, beer is fine. I'm good with beer.
Yeah.
I can be irresponsible enough with that. So to think that in this person's mind, 12 people, 12 plus people, because you got to think you got your apostles. You also have Mary Magdalene. You've got there's auxiliary characters here in the Bible that are still very influential on the books about Jesus. To think that all of them were dosing mushrooms and ending up at this one singular conclusion. No,
It doesn't add up.
I can't get behind just with that. Again, I have no experience. I haven't done it. I have no interest in doing it. I'm fine with my simple life. But to think that all 12 people would take something and then see the same thing and then die for it, like you said, nah, no.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you said, when somebody in my teenage years, when somebody explained to me what mushrooms were, and they're like, you can either have like an amazing time or you can see demons. I was like, no, not taking that chance.
Nope.
That 50 feet, I'm not flipping the coin on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, I can't be responsible enough with alcohol.
No,
that was my life.
Yeah,
before.
right.
Yeah.
I know, God, being 20 something and being introduced to alcohol and being, that takes years.
Yeah.
Takes a long time to figure out how to not to be a problem when it comes to that stuff. Oh
Yeah.
God, yeah. But
Yeah. I always tell Katie that by the grace of God, I'm alive here because I made so many stupid mistakes.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. There was so many times. That same trip to Amsterdam, I also made a couple days stop over in Dublin, Ireland, and came very close to getting arrested in Dublin. And fortunately, I pretended to be deaf. And like I couldn't hear the officer, and and the guy was just not having it with me, so I just walked away. And that was one of those moments like, okay, I gotta be a little smarter than getting arrested in a foreign country. This isn't winning.
That can turn into a nightmare real quick.
Oh yeah, no, I can't even. I don't know what an Irish prison looks like. Don't really want to find out.
Nope.
I just big nope on a rope there, but
I kind of imagine full of like Conor McGregor's that just I want to kick your ass.
I was in such a like the area I was in. I feel like we were in such a touristy kind of place.
Yeah.
And we were there for such a short period of time, and this was before. I was 23, so this is really before you're going to find Wi-Fi everywhere. I don't think I had a smartphone. Maybe I did. I don't think so.
It was like early 2000s.
Yeah, so this would have been 23. So this would have been 2007, 2008, somewhere in that area. And even if you had a smartphone, there's no Wi-Fi to be found anywhere. And unless you like at that point, airports were like, you can have Wi-Fi for $20 an hour, and I'm like, I'm poor. This isn't happening.
Yep.
So trying to figure out like where do you go in Amsterdam? As like we figured out where the Guinness factory was. Went there. That was cool. And,
Yeah.
But yeah,
That sounds awesome.
It was a hoot
and all that. Yeah.
It was, and I'd love to go back and not necessarily create the same trip, just because it was 10 days, but it was like 5 stops in 10 days, which was oddly enough the exact same thing we did on our honeymoon, just 10 days of driving. And in hindsight, I'm like, I got to stop planning trips.
Yeah.
Where I don't ever actually get to sit down and relax. It was just that trip and our honeymoon was just go, and ugh.
It became kind of like a chore, you think? Like
We drove 2,500 miles in 10 days.
oof.
And
That's a lot of driving.
And don't get me wrong, we drove down to Louisville, we drove down to Pigeon Forge, and then we took the long way through Asheville, North Carolina, to actually Ashburroughs, where we stayed. Beautiful little place we stayed in there. But the end goal was to make it out to the Outer Banks. And it all started like I want to go to the Outer Banks. It seemed like more of an adult kind of beachy getaway sort of thing without, we're like, we want to make sure this is an adult getaway. We don't want to accidentally end up in Disney World and we're on our honeymoon surrounded by 12, 10 and 12-year-olds. Like, it's just not how. But
Yeah.
the more we started looking into it, that's not Ashbur or Outer Banks isn't necessarily a place you fly to. I mean, you could fly in sort of locally, but then you're renting a car, and we started adding up numbers and like, let's just drive. I've never done a drive like this. Let's just drive. And we saw some amazing parts of the country. We drove Blue Ridge Parkway. I mean, you want a reminder that God exists? Go drive Blue Ridge Parkway. That was unbelievably beautiful. I mean, it was 3 hours of driving at like 40 miles an hour. That grinds on you a little bit, but we through tunnels. We just it's such an amazing drive. There's just points where we stop like, hey, that's a waterfall. We stopped and we saw this beautiful waterfall kind of going down to this grotto, and that wasn't a touristy stop. There was just a random like walking path. We walked up a little bit, and saw the top of the river, kind of walked down, saw where it kind of flowed to. And we were gonna walk down further. We're like, this still looks a little
sketchy,
little questionable, maybe. What do we need to? So we went back to the truck, but we saw just beauty there, and just stunning. But yeah, I mean, don't regret it, but also multiple days of 5-6 hours a day of driving. I mean, mad respect to any truckers listening to us, because I mean, again, I think I mentioned earlier, I ran a towing company for a number of years, and I spent some time driving too, and did some rough drives with that. But don't enjoy that kind of lifestyle. I can't do it.
It's I know exactly what you mean, because for the company that I work with, the meat company, we deliver, and I trained to driving pretty much all around the Wisconsin delivering meat.
Sure.
Because the actual driver, we only have one driver. He's going to take a vacation at the end of this month, and I'm going to take over for him. And it's not a big rig or anything. It's one of those 4 trucks, like really tall ones, really long.
Yeah, like a box truck.
Yeah. And it was a little bit intimidating because it's bigger and it's full of meat, and then you don't want to make any sharp turns or do them too violently, because everything was gonna fall. So going out is stressful, definitely. All the driving and all that, it's not for me either. Like I said, respect for all the drivers that do that for a living. That's a great skill, and that is needed. That's appreciated, because without you guys, nothing will be delivered. We wouldn't have the goods.
Right.
But also, like you said, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see all these things. Like, I remember driving all over Door County. He took me all the way to where the ferry is, because we drop off some meat in there, and then the ferry takes it out to the islands.
Sure.
So we drove out in there. It's just beautiful, and it's in winter. So now imagine like the summer, that much better and beautiful and colorful and green. Yeah.
Well, right. I mean, I don't know, but have you ever been out? Have you ever been out east where you've hit like the Appalachian Mountains, or even out west where you've hit like the Rocky Mountains at all?
Yeah, I've been to Utah.
Okay.
And Colorado, like the mountains, and then we saw Delicate Arch in Canyonlands.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's so my point there being like, we're in Wisconsin. It's even we've got hilly terrain. No, we drove, obviously, we making the drive. Any of you who have any bearing on how maps work know that we had to drive over the Appalachians to go out east, and then had to go drive back over the Appalachians to come back, and kind of 2 completely different ones, because we sort of made a big sort of a circle to kind of make the whole route.
Yeah.
But just driving over that kind of stuff, like, we don't drive that kind of stuff here. I'm like, the first time in my life I'd seen places where they had like trailers and trucks must stay in this lane, and there's big breakdown, so those guys that burn out their brakes can kind of have a runoff before they kill everyone.
Yeah.
And seeing that kind of, there was a big chunk of the Blue Ridge Parkway where we started at probably 1,000, maybe 1,500 feet of elevation. We get to the highest point at about 5,500 feet of elevation, and then it descends back down as we get into Asheville. But the descent side, there was a good chunk of it where I actually put the truck into like second or third. I mean, it's an automatic transmission, but put it into second or third gear so I'm not wearing down the brakes. So that I'm just essentially engine braking in a Toyota Tundra.
Yeah.
But it made more sense to do that than burn through the brakes as just slowly grind.
Yeah.
It was a descent. We don't have that around here.
Yeah.
We might have.
Just like you said, like driving through Colorado, like seeing like those descents, and then like the truck it stops, like it's basically just an elevation for in case they lose their brakes. Seeing those like every like every couple miles.
Mm-hmm.
And oddly enough, we saw a semi. We're going driving right next to it, and the brakes of the semi were just smoking.
Oh yeah.
We're like, let's just pass this, and then just your foot is on the brake all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you were out in Colorado, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So have you or did you go to or hear of a place called Bishop's Castle?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I one of my really, really good friends, he moved out to Colorado. He was out there for 4, 5, 6. I mean, he was out there for a little while, long enough that I went and visited him, which is saying something because I don't, I'm lazy. I don't really go and do things.
Yeah.
So we went out to visit him. Me and another friend went out there, stayed for kind of a week and hung out and stuff. And he's like, "We got to go to Bishop's Castle." And I don't know if he'd been there before. I'm guessing he didn't because of what I'm about to tell you. But so Bishop's Castle, it's a guy who I want to say in the 50s or 60s. He has a plot of land on the edge of a national forest and just started building a castle. If you look up pictures of this thing, this is pretty legit. He's got like a fire-breathing dragon off the front of this thing, stained glass.
Wow.
I mean, you can, and it's a free-for-all. It's just a guy who built this, and you can go there. Basically, but walking on the property, there's a sign that's, this gigantic sign he made that basically is, you've waived all legal rights to complain about me or sue me for anything if you've stepped on this premises. You're coming on here free of your own accord. Good luck to you.
Yeah.
But you can climb and do anything. I mean, there's spiral staircases going up like 6 flights. It's
amazing.
It's bonkers. It's absolutely insane. And he ended up in a lawsuit with like the National Forest because they sued him for taking rocks to build. And I could be misrepresenting the story. So obviously, again, fact check yourself.
Yeah.
But he was getting sued for taking rocks off of the National Forest, essentially, for lack of better terms, across the street to build this thing. But and I have no earthly idea how that turned out. Last I checked, again, I haven't looked this guy up in forever, but he was building like a rampart wall around the whole property and stuff. So he's taken absurd amounts of rock to do this.
Yeah.
He just works on it every day. You go there. This
Still
guy
to this day, he's still
Yep.
working. Wow.
Yep. And so which tells me it probably wasn't 50s or 60s he started. So I apologize for my. Wikipedia exists. Do your homework. People.
Exactly.
But so the point being, my buddy lives in Colorado Springs. Bishop's Castle was like an hour drive. And we're looking at the map, and it's like the letter V. Like we had to go down and then go back up. And we kind of zoom in on the map a little bit, and we're looking like, what's this road here? There's like a direct shot. We can just take this road. Like, let's do it. So we hopped in his Ford Taurus. And we start driving, and we're on this. We're following this map. We're like, this cuts out like 30 miles of driving. Why we have to do this? So we start on it's 4-lane wide highway. All of a sudden, then it's 2 lanes wide, and then it's gravel, and it's like 1 lane wide. We are now on a mountain pass in a Ford Taurus.
Oh.
And I mean, we're going up switchbacks. It's all gravel.
Yeah.
We're just now we got no cell service. Now I've got no way of. Like, are we doing the right thing?
Or like turning around?
Or there was a few times where we're like, should we turn around? We're like, we're gonna keep going. And there was houses up in this area. There's a guy who was like stacking lumber. I remember he was stacking wood out by the road, and we stopped and we rolled out. Hey, we're looking for Bishop's Castle. He's like, oh, you're trying to take the shortcut route. And I'm like, okay, we're not the first idiots to do this.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, you got about another 10 minutes of this to go, but you'll be fine. And so we keep going, and then before you know it, kind of the road kind of starts coming back down. Then it's 2 lanes wide and paved, and then it's 4 lanes wide, and then take a right, take a left, and all of a sudden you're there. But it was like that was my experience in Colorado. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm gonna listen to the maps from now on.
This is like the beginning of a horror movie.
Yeah, did I accidentally? Is there a river? Is this Deliverance? What's happening here?
Yeah.
Oh man! But no, we survived obviously, and that was a trip. So if you ever make it back to Colorado, Bishop's Castle, free,
Bishop's
awesome,
Castle.
ridiculous. Like apparently, I think I remember they were saying something on like New Year's Eve. He actually like the dragon, this gigantic metal dragon shoots fire and everything.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, just the guy
It's just one single guy out in the forest.
Yeah,
That's
I'm gonna pull this up.
amazing.
I'm gonna pull this up
Yeah.
so you have some semblance of what I'm talking about.
It reminds me. Have you been to House on the Rock here in Wisconsin?
I have not specifically gone there.
Yeah.
I went to college. When I left high school, I went to college down in Platteville, which is down in that area.
Yeah.
So there's a few times I didn't have a car. When I went to Platteville, it was like, oh, you want to bring it? Freshmen? I don't even think we're allowed to bring cars. There's a few people that had exceptions for it, but basically it was just if you're gonna have one, you're gonna be paying a mint.
Yeah.
And I had my first vehicle, which I had before moving to college, was a 1988 Jeep Cherokee. Heck of a vehicle. Had more speakers than I could shake a stick. A 312-inch subwoofers in the back of this thing.
Wow.
Like I mean, and it was like made the roof vibrate.
Rattling.
Oh yeah, I'm like me and Nelly. We were just listening to. Oh, it was a whole thing. But as I went on, the rear main seal went out of it, and it was like. My mom was like, "I'm sick of this leaking oil. You're moving to college. We're getting rid of this thing."
Yeah.
So I took all the speakers out, put them in the basement. So when I got, I got another vehicle, I'd be there. But so I went with no. So there's a couple times we went up and looked at that, and actually we got 2 golden retrievers at home, and our second one was a rescue. She was a rescue, but she was rescued down from that area.
Huh.
Which I mean, obviously you've been to.
Yeah.
So you've been there. It's not. That's not the only building Frank Lloyd Wright built down there. There's multiple. It's like
it's like a compound.
It is. And so we didn't specifically drive by House on the Rock when we went to get our second dog, but I mean, you can tell a Frank Lloyd Wright house if you have a clue what architecture is. So we're driving, and I look up on this hill. I'm like, I know that's not House on
You
the
see
Rock.
like the giant thing that sticks out, like the infinity room they call it.
Yeah. But so I see one house over there, and there's we probably drove past 6 or 8 houses that he built down that area.
You should definitely check it out. I think it's a great family trip to take the whole family there. It's awesome. It's like $50 a person, but it's like an entire day to check this whole thing out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think kids pay less, but for adults, it's awesome. Like I went there the first time. Katie took me there because she's been there before as a kid, and then I took my parents the second time, and it's just awesome. Like this guy just collected things, and he was an aspiring architect, and he had this guy who was his idol as this other architect. Let me check.
Yeah, you got to.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm not. That's one guy built that.
What?
Seriously.
That is awesome.
See, and you can climb through all that. There's not like a security guard. This isn't Disney World. There's not ropes.
Yeah.
You just go.
That's why he has got disclaimer at the beginning.
Yeah.
If you hurt yourself, you hurt yourself.
If you die, it's on you. Yeah, it's
wow.
amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's got some unique takes on life.
Oh, there's a dragon.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, he's always there. Like you can go there and
inside.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I don't know if he rents it out for weddings. I honestly have no. And it's got a website. I don't remember
exactly what I thought the first time I see this. I'm like, this would be awesome for weddings.
Yeah. Well, and if you can, and it's got a website now. And for all I know, it's not free anymore.
Yeah.
I have no earthly idea. I mean, I went there over 10 years ago, but because I don't remember them ever having a website before. And there's a website here which makes me want. Yeah, there's a whole thing here, but yeah, bishopscastle.org. So it's he's not
check it out.
Not making cabbage off of it, I guess. But yeah, so bishopscastle.org.
Yeah, if you're in Colorado, or if you never know about this, if you've never known about this, so go check it out.
Well, I don't think you can go there without leaving with a story because we went there and he was just there. He's just working on stuff, walking around with buckets of bricks, and he's talking to us. And like what is this? Like you don't go to Disney World and Walt Disney comes up. Let me show you what I'm working on. No, it doesn't work that way.
It also reminds me of that other guy in California. Have you heard of him? Like he built like an entire thing with his own hands, and it's all colorful. It kind of looks like it's made out of rock, but he used like mud and bricks and trash, and then he's building this giant thing in California. I forgot what he's called. A friend showed it to me. Like this other guy just by himself building this thing, and it's makes me kind of want to do that, but I don't have the knowledge. To build something like that.
How do you start doing something like that?
Exactly.
Well, I found a rock. This could be a start of a castle. What?
Yeah.
I don't even know. I mean, it's a cool thing.
Like in the Old Testament, where they start an entire civilization with a rock. Eat this rock, and this is where God's going to reside. And then boom, there's a nation there.
He's like, I found a rock, so I started building the Tower of Babel. How are you guys doing? Like, is that?
Yeah, just have had this idea, and just coming to fruition now.
Yeah, I gotta wonder, like Tower of Babel in the Bible. Like, did they really start with we got to build a tower to God, or was there just guys like I was building rocks and people just started coming along and we're just going up? I don't.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like it's for our glory. Then God comes like, okay, no.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Like, hey, good luck with that. You're speaking Japanese now.
But yeah, that in House on the Rock here in Wisconsin, you should check it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
100%.
He built it out of spite to show this other architect that he could be an architect. Yeah. Because the guy who built it showed his plan to this architect, and he said, "This is trash. You'll never make it." And that was like his idol. Like this is what I want to be like you. So this guy who he admired a lot, he's like, "No, you will never be an architect. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
So he went and out of spite, he's like, okay, I'm going to show you. And then he just built and built and built and collected. He collected a lot of things, and the things that this man collected, they're all over the place, and it's amazing. It's just an awesome experience. You should check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a good summer project for us.
Yeah. So yeah, let's. I think we're closer to an hour here. Let's start landing the plane.
All right.
Any final thoughts? Like anybody who doesn't know who Jesus is, and let's say, especially in a relationship, because you have the experience like with your past wife and now with this wife. Like anybody who's struggling with relationships and stress and all that, what would you tell them?
Well, here's my word to anyone, and especially people who may have had a bad religious experience in the past. Because let's be real honest, I think the vast majority of people that aren't in the faith, you're one or two people. Either you just don't care, you just I'd rather do other things, or they've had trauma, they've had something, they had a bad experience. And I know people like that, but don't let the actions of one person ruin the potential connection to something so great. Like there's more churches out there, there's more people out there, there's more ways to connect. So don't give up on something that when it could be right there for you. The other thing that I think I kind of said it. It's just always know that you can be a better version of yourself tomorrow, and strive for that. You're never going to be perfect, but just be better, because God put you here. He's giving you the chance to be something great, to be a blessing to the people around you. So don't be perfect, but just be better.
I think that's great advice right there. So yeah, and everybody who listens, the reason why we call it our best likes is because we try to put a little bit of Jesus in every single day and in every conversation. So thank you all for listening. Thank you, Paul, for being here and giving us this awesome conversation. Now I know what to check out at Colorado next time I go there.
Right.
Because we're actually going in April. So.
Are you really?
Oh yeah.
If you don't go, then we're going to be in a fight. Like legitimately.
I will send you pictures.
It's like dead center in Colorado
Yeah.
from my memory looking on the map. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully, by the time this post, we'll be closer to that and then actually make a plan, because we're going in April. That's a thing, because I've been wanting to go back there for the longest time. So since we went on our honeymoon, so that's amazing. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Remember, God is a God of relations, and He wants to get to know you. And no matter how hard the situation you are in, He can get you through it. He can show you that with Him, everything is possible. And thank you, God, for sending us Jesus. So with all that, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.